Hey, what is up guys? It's your boy Speed here, and today we're going to be going over the various reasons why TA is currently one of the most popular mids in the game, how to play her, and just in general following Fnatic Chuan's gameplay on this absolutely strong hero, and hopefully by the end of the video, you guys will be able to pick TA in your games and absolutely pop off. But before we get into it, smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, and by the way, tomorrow, a very, very special video is on the way. I can't tell you what it is right now. No hints for you guys. Absolutely, I cannot. But a very special video. Utter domination. That's all I'm gonna say. No, but it's gonna be really fun. Not that this video, I'm hyped for this video too. Let's get into it. And subscribe to GameLeap. We post videos there every single day. I'm continuing to try to improve the content I make over there. And you're really gonna notice that if you watch those videos and apply the concepts, you'll get better much quicker. So click the link down below. Give it a shot. There's a refund policy if you don't like it. Check out some of Speed's content. I know you're going to enjoy it. Alright, I'll see you guys there. Alright, so in terms of the laning stage, this is one of the best laners in the game. It's simply reliable. TA with 305 movement speed, 62 damage, and 5 armor is simply good in the lane, right? I mean, those are just really good stats. They are. Compared to a hero like Mirana, for instance, 51 damage, 2 armor, and 290. Now, this is a support Mirana, but you get the point, right? TA inherently has really good stats. That is one of the factors that often allows a hero to get to the point where it's like picked consistently, right? When it's just like a solid laner. Only because if a hero has like a really bad laning stage, it's very uncommon to see it getting first phased, unless it's just a meta of like PL Chen and it's TI8 or whatever. But alright, let's get into the laning stage. They picked it into an Invoker. In general, the heroes you want to play TA into are the standards. The standards being Zeus, Invoker, Puck, anyone who can't properly break refraction and that you can jump in the mid game with the help of a +1, sometimes even without, is really good. Now in terms of the lane, what you want to do on TA is generally you just start throwing side blades. What a lot of people do wrong on TA is they pull aggro too early, and then what happens is the melee creeps are so far away from the range creep that you actually cannot side blade off of them in order to secure the range creep, and then you lose it. And so instead, what often you'll see TAs do, at least if they can, is just auto attack like this. Now in this case, she does aggro because the Invoker is playing in such a way, I'm gonna make sure you guys understand this, he's playing in such a way that forces the TA to do so. In your pubs, very often people are simply gonna sit behind their wave and chill. However, Invoker and in general against TA, you wanna pressure the TA at level 1. You just hit her, because you don't necessarily want to CS against her. And considering there's a bit of a damage difference between Invoker and TA, and as well as the fact that side blades do pure damage at level 1, it just kind of makes you not want to sit even with the TA. What I mean by that is you don't want TA to be here and you to be here. So Invoker instead is going to play this annoying game where he just hits and moves, and he's going to do that over and over again, just to kind of mess with the TA, even using the EMP to try to secure the range creep, which is, what he did. And yeah, so if the lane is easy and they're not pressuring you, don't really pull aggro, just constantly throw auto attacks off the creeps and try to hit side blades. That's really the best advice here, and you can see he's going to consistently do that this entire lane until the Invoker starts hitting him. You see how that's the natural reaction here? Just copy that in your games as well. So one thing that's very important to note, and an important thing to learn in order to become a better mid player in particular, it does apply to the other lanes, but I think it's like primarily a mid thing that you really focus on it, which is knowing how many points in a spell do I need to kill a range creep, and how many auto attacks will it take. For a hero like TA, obviously it's auto attacks. For Leshrac, maybe it's like I need 2 auto attacks and a lightning storm or a split earth in order to kill the range creep, or even just kill a melee creep, right? You need to know the numbers. So a good number for TA is once you hit level 2 refraction, what you can do is you can throw 3 auto attacks at the range creep off side blades and it will kill it, and it will leave it at such a range that most heroes can't deny it. And therefore, if you do not aggro once again, and you don't let creeps go onto the range creep, or they don't pull creeps onto the range creep, you can do this over and over again, and it makes laning really, really easily. And no, he doesn't have a DD right now, that's just a replay bug. It's 3 minutes in, he couldn't. Another thing that's very important to note for me is that anytime you're in a lane against a hero that doesn't easily break refraction, you want to spam clarities. Especially against Wex Invoker, obviously, considering he's burning your mana. You in particular need to spam clarities, but in general, you'll see TAs against Pucks and Zeuses and Invokers just use them even while in the lane. And the reason for this is you just want to be able to spam refraction off cooldown. Once you hit level 3 refraction, you want to use it off cooldown if possible. Now, as I said, he's against this Wex Invoker, his mana is being constantly burned, so he can't really do that. But optimally, if you're against those heroes and you buy clarities and a bottle, you could do that. On top of that, the game plan of TA is brutally simple, which is why I love this hero early on. You just gotta have a lot of efficiency. Once you hit level 3 refraction, even level 2 refraction in really easy lanes, so for instance in this game, he tried to farm the small camp at minute 4, unfortunately was blocked by a sentry, so he had to buy a sentry and unblock it for himself. But once you hit level 2 refraction, if you can shove out the wave, then go farm the small camp. Right? If the lane's that easy where you can easily shove out the wave without being like, I don't know, Lina stunned into a million autos or Pugna decrept, right? One of these heroes. If that's the case, then you can't really do this. You have to focus on the lane creeps a little bit more. But if not, you just want to rinse repeat. For instance, right here, right? You're going to auto attack the lane. He's actually saving refraction for the jungle camps. Decides to hit the tower here just because he expected or saw an invoker rotation. And so, you know, just getting a little bit of mid tower pressure, pretty standard. Getting the traps out, popping refraction. He's going to shove out the mid. And then he's probably just going to go jungle. He could consider hitting mid here, only because Clock isn't too much of a threat without a follow-up stun or follow-up damage, but yeah, they end up getting a kill. And yeah, I'm not going to cover too much more here, because at this point, it's basically put a trap on your high ground, put a trap on their high ground, pop refraction, shove the wave, stack Ancients in your downtime, tell your supports to stack Ancients, and rinse repeat. Now, I'm sure a lot of you guys are familiar with the new Dragonlance TA build. It's been popular for a hot minute now. I'm definitely not the first person to be talking about this. But for anyone who doesn't know, here we go. Number 1, you buy a Dragonlance because the item got buffed and gives you attack range. This attack range synergizes with the level 10 talent that TA now has, which is 100 Psyblade range. This doesn't mean that like your Psyblades just go further, like you have to hit a creep and then the Psyblade has the potential to go further. No, it just straight up buffs your attack range. It just gives you 100 attack range. It also makes the Psyblades go further too, but most importantly, it just buffs your attack range so you can stay very, very defensive, very far back in fights. Talking about far back in fights, this is the perfect example. TA in the past, if we looked at this clip, would be fodder. She'd be food. She would be dead. But because of the Dragonlance, she has 1400 HP with Strength Tread 1600 HP with 15 armor in the early game. And all of a sudden, this hero that usually would just want to be ganked, 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 ganked is very tanky, especially under the tower. And that's exactly what we see in this clip here. You can stay back, gets gone on, and with a sliver of HP, lives. Obviously, with a Blink or Deso Rush, he would 100% be dead. And that's the cool thing about this Dragonlance build. It actually makes TA a hero that's known for just getting dived and bursted in the early game, and actually at all stages of the game, completely unkillable. That's maybe a bit of an over-exaggeration, but you get the point. Now moving on, once you've gotten this Dragonlance, you just basically want to show up to any fight that happens. Do not try to initiate fights. I think that's a really bad idea. I wouldn't even bother ganking lanes. For instance, if we watch his gameplay for this next short period of time, he's just going to be shoving waves, waiting for things to happen. Actually, in this case, he has no mana, so he has to go back to base. But in general, jungle, shove waves, and wait for fights to happen. When they do, go over, put down a trap, turn on refraction before you show up to the fight, and clean it up. Now in this game in particular, he decided to rush Blink Dagger. Let's talk about the reasons why I think this is a good Blink Dagger game. Number 1, his team doesn't have that many stuns. When I say stuns, I'm more so talking about the ability to initiate and go in. They don't really have a great frontliner yet. This, you know, he's okay on Bloodseeker. He does a little bit. Gyro at some point will be, but for the early game, not the case. So the Blink lets you go in if you need to. More importantly, and the reason why I think he primarily bought the Blink was for defensive purposes. Anytime the enemy team doesn't have great ways of popping refraction in this game, they really have awful ways at breaking refraction. Almost none of their heroes do like constant damage, maybe Timber ulti, but that's super underwhelming. Therefore, you can blink out of stuff. If you have refraction on and you get hit, it does not break the blink, and in this game, it's very easy for him to blink out because of their damage sources. This fight is a perfect example as they go up to this top tower of why this build is so potent and useful. First of all, he has a DD, and so he's very keen to fight. Anytime you get a rune, Haste DD, not really Illusion or Invis, but Haste DD is typically the main two. If you get one of those two, definitely look to take fights. Even go to look to gank the safe laner and turn that into a tier 1 tower. I think that's a really good metric for TA on when she can like kind of switch the tempo, because usually you're just farming. So this is a good time to switch the tempo. Talking about switching the tempo, fight breaks out, arrow lands onto his lion, okay, not a great fight. Because of the Dragonlance, honestly, even here, he probably gets a little bit too close. I don't think his positioning is necessarily the best, but he's able to stay relatively far away. And because of this, he can continue to just hit people and kite around the fight with this Blink Dagger and stay at a relatively decent range. For instance, this Clockwork here. You see that auto attack? That is way out of range for the old TA, way out of range. But over and over again, you just pump damage from the backline. Like, pump damage from the backline. Old TA was very much one and done. New TA is actually more of like a Viper. It's very consistent and annoying damage from the backline. Now, to talk about what I would argue is the best part of TA. I call it the Plague Ward effect. Anytime you have a low cooldown spell that gives vision, it actually changes the way high MMR Dota is played. Now, you might be saying, oh, speed. Speed, that's great news, really it is. But I'm just not high MMR yet. I haven't gotten there. I get it, man. I get it. I get it. It's tough. But you can still use the vision for yourself. It's actually a great way to practice just like having really good map awareness. Now, talking about the traps, where should you put them? It's actually pretty easy to know where. Anytime you are going to go anywhere, you should put it on the nearby hill. For instance, right here, he's farming up the mid lane, so he has a trap here. This one's kind of random. I guess it kind of protects from a potential wrapping flank, right? That kind of makes sense. Has a Ruin Ward, that's not a hill, but that's like a very standard one. And then usually you have one in the Roshan pit, getting in towards the mid to late game. Anytime you think that the enemy team or you can start to Rosh, you want to get a trap in the pit to start to scout that out. But yeah, that's kind of the gist with traps. And really, I think it's the best part of the hero because not only does it allow you to cut creep waves, which is a very common use, it just gives you vision. Like, it's really hard to run into TA teams. People don't realize it. TA is a lot more of a Venomancer than she seems. She's a lot more of a nuisance when it comes to initiating fights than you realize. Like, people look at this hero as just a DPS dealer. If you aren't abusing the fact that you can basically prevent, like, let's say a lion with a blink dagger from doing anything in a fight by timing a well-placed trap, you're crazy, right? Like, think about it. For instance, this game, let's say the Invoker walks up to the fight. If he hits a trap on the Invoker, it's like a what? What is the slow, like 4 seconds? It's a 5-second slow, and it's 60% if maxed out. The guy can't move, and that's the point. Another great perk to TA, and as you can see, there's a lot of perks. I will say that her downside, before I get into this next perk, yes, she has downsides, believe it or not. This hero, against certain team comps, she gets jumped and died and controlled. And, you know, and in the late game, if people buy halberds, all of a sudden it becomes really hard to actually kill anybody because you miss a ton and they disarm you for 5 seconds. So in the late game, this hero can be very clunky. For instance, if she has to play against something of the likes of a PL in the late game, she's most likely to feed, right? That's kind of how this hero functions, or a Terrorblade or a Morphling. The hero can actually dump on PLs and TBs in the early game because of Psyblades being pure damage, or even just breaking through their armor with Meld and Deso. But yeah, in the late game it gets tough. However, going back to the positives, she Roshes really fast. Yeah, I mean, I know it's like speed, we know. It's TA. Well, maybe some of you guys didn't know, but like, you just spam Meld and Meld stacks. So all of a sudden with the Deso, Roshan just has 7 armor. Like, that's insane, right? Drop a medallion, drop a solar on it, practically 0. And yeah, it's just really powerful. And just having the ability to force fights. And what's really cool is these Roshan fights. I mean, like, hopefully you guys can see how this all comes together. Traps and TA's ability to Rosh is like crazy powerful because it's so easy to trap Roshan, right? And I'm not saying put the trap in the pit. I'm saying put the traps around the pit. Put one here, put one here, put one here, put one here, put one here if you think they're going to smoke and flank, but the main ones here and here. Put the traps here, like he sort of has, and then it's really hard for them to go in. Like, really, it's really, really hard for them to go in. By the way, traps do 480 damage. That is nothing to scoff at, right? Right? That's a really high number, it is. And that's exactly what we see here. He didn't pop the trap right away, probably because he was a little bit distracted, but eventually he will pop the trap and the clock is absolutely stuck, right? The guy cannot move, and he just auto-attacks him to death. And more often than not, that's kind of what fights look like against TA for position 5s and 4s. They just get stuck and die. Briefly, let's take a look at the talents. So at level 15, there isn't too much right-click for him to worry about this game. If Prophet goes on him, he's just typically just either going to outrange him or avoid him altogether. At level 20, you want to take Meld Dispels. This is one of the best talents in the game. It really is. A Dispel on a 5-second cooldown is nuts. Are you Cold Snapped? Just click Meld. Are you Spirit Vessel? Just click Meld. Are you Shadow Striked? Just Meld. Are you Dusted? Meld! Like, that's probably the craziest one, right? If you're split pushing and they dust you to try to catch you so you can meld out, your Meld, which makes you go invis, purges the dust. It's really cool. And then finally, do not take Meld Bash Hit. It got nerfed. I think it used to be 2 seconds. It definitely was 1.5 at one point, And yeah, I think aid refraction is just much better, especially if they do not have a good way of popping the refraction like OB Neon does not this game, then it is particularly good. Also, if you technically want to look at it like that, it's 8 instances of 100 damage, which is 800 more damage in a team fight. And by the way, it's more like 1600. You're typically going to get off 2 to 3 refractions in a fight. And let's look at the last fight of the game. This really shows off the beauty of this build. Also, I love the Hurricane Pike. A lot of TAs actually switch out their Dragonlance sometimes. I think the Hurricane Pike is just a necessity, especially in a game like this against Sprout and Cogs. But even against like just a lot of right clickers, the ability to get them off of you is huge. Also, you get 4 free auto attacks if you want to use it like that, which is quite good. But once again, in this fight, he's just going to throw some autos out. And really what's funny here is that he actually procs the Aeon Disc of the Mirana accidentally. And you'll see this a lot. You'll end up killing supports for basically just accidentally you'll kill them. Like, look at these side blades, because they hit from so far away, right? Boom, side blade, boom, side blade, right? Procced. That's huge, you know? Think about how big of an impact that is. That Mirana's just gonna die because of that at some point. And yeah, the fight ends up being super free. You don't have to overcommit like you typically would have to as a TA. As a result, he can just destroy this Prophet from a million years away. The fight keeps on going. TA never runs out of damage. One of the biggest benefits of this hero. She absolutely has no cooldowns whatsoever, and you should take advantage of that. Try to play for these long fights. Alright, and that's going to be all for today's video. The only thing I would like to say is when you do pick TA, make sure you have initiators and stuns. And I know that's a basic, but the hero has no stuns, right? It does have a slow, but it has no stuns. It needs people to go in, it needs people to tank. Yes, the Dragonlance does make you much tankier and much more of I'm not going to say a frontline, but a survivable hero in the early game. Once the game gets past like minute 20, 25, it gets very hard for TA to play if people can't provide vision for her, or at least soak up the damage, right? She has the traps, but at least soak up the damage. And yeah, the reason why the stuns are important is in the late game, if you jump someone with Blink and they don't get stunned, you typically don't do enough to burst at least a core, and therefore you'll fall off, especially without them getting off, you know, Yules, BKB, whatever, Manta, anything like that. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this analysis. I'll see you in the next one, and I'm out. Peace. And that's all, but remember, before you leave, before you tune out, subscribe to the GameLeap website, where we are going to help you get to the next rank. If you're stuck, click the link down below, and I'm out. Peace.